I should have known something was off the moment my husband wouldn't sit still at my baby shower. Not because he looked nervous. Nervous would have been normal. I was 8 months pregnant with our first child, the house was full of family, my mother had gone overboard with the decorations, and every 5 minutes somebody was calling his name to move a chair, bring in more ice or pose for a picture. No, this was different. Rashad looked like a man waiting for a bomb to go off. He kept checking his phone. He kept stepping outside. He kept glancing toward the front door, like he was afraid somebody might walk through it. At the time, I told myself he was stressed. Men get weird when a baby is almost here. That's what my cousin Tamika had said. She laughed and told me, "Girl, they be acting more pregnant than us." So I ignored the feeling in my stomach. And I'm not talking about the baby kicking. I'm talking about that quiet, sick little feeling a woman gets when her spirit is trying to warn her before her mind is ready to listen. The baby shower was beautiful. I'll give everybody that. My mama had rented out this big community room in her church, but by the time she got done with it, you would have thought it was some fancy event space, cream and gold balloons everywhere, a dessert table with little baby bottles made out of chocolate. My mother-in-law, Sheila, had made one of those diaper cakes so big it looked like a wedding centerpiece. There were gifts piled up higher than the table, and everybody kept rubbing my stomach and saying the baby was going to come out spoiled before she even got here. I should have been happy. Honestly, part of me was, because it had taken me a long time to get to that day. I met Rashad 3 years earlier at a friend's birthday dinner. He sat across from me and spent half the night making me laugh. He had that kind of charm that didn't feel forced. He wasn't loud, he didn't have to be. He was the kind of man who knew how to lean in, lower his voice, and make you feel like the whole room had disappeared. Back then, I was the kind of woman who had already been through enough disappointment to think I could spot a liar. I had done the cheating men, the inconsistent men, the men who loved your body but not your peace. So when Rashad came along talking about stability, consistency, and wanting a family, I thought maybe, just maybe, God had finally sent me somebody solid. He courted me right. Flowers, phone calls, dates planned in advance, good morning texts, checking on me after work. He wasn't flashy, but he was intentional, and after a year and a half when he got down on one knee in front of both our families, I cried so hard I almost ruined my makeup before I could say yes. That was the thing about Rashad. He knew how to build a picture, and I didn't realize until much later that I had fallen in love with the picture more than I had ever truly known the man. There had been little things, of course. There always are. He traveled for work more than I expected. He said his company had clients in different cities, and sometimes he had to leave last minute. He worked in project management, which sounded important enough that I never questioned it too deeply. Half the time, when he tried explaining what he did, it sounded like corporate soup anyway. Deadlines, accounts, vendors, site visits. I'd nod, kiss him goodbye, and tell him to be safe. He kept his phone close. Very close. He took calls in other rooms. Sometimes I'd ask who it was and he'd say, "Work." Sometimes he'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't quite the one I bought him, and I'd tell myself maybe it was from some hotel soap or one of those department store sample sprays. Once, maybe 6 months into our marriage, I woke up in the middle of the night and realized he wasn't in bed. I found him downstairs in the dark kitchen, whispering on the phone. When I flipped on the light, he jumped, actually jumped. Then he laughed it off and said one of his co-workers was going through some drama and needed advice. That should have stayed with me more than it did. But when you love somebody, you become a lawyer for their lies without even realizing it. You explain things they never bothered to explain. You fill in holes they left wide open. You work harder to believe them than they ever worked to deserve that belief. And when I got pregnant, I leaned all the way into the dream. Rashad cried when I told him. Real tears. He picked me up and spun me around in the kitchen even though I yelled at him to put me down before he killed both of us. He kissed my stomach every night. He downloaded one of those dad apps that compares the baby to fruit and vegetables every week. He painted the nursery himself, soft grey walls, white trim, a gold moon over the crib. If there were red flags, I dipped them in white paint and called them decorations. By the day of that baby shower, I was deep in my own fairy tale. I was sitting in a decorated chair in the middle of the room, opening gifts while everybody oohed and ahed over tiny clothes and bottles and blankets. My cousin was recording me for social media. My auntie kept yelling, "Hold it up so we can see." My mother was fussing because somebody put the cupcakes too close to the edge of the table. Normal, warm, beautiful, and right in the middle of all of it, Rashad's phone buzzed again. He looked down at it, and his whole face changed. He stood up so fast he almost knocked over a chair. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Just work. I'm gonna step outside for a second." Work. At a baby shower. On a Saturday. I watched him walk out. Phone already pressed to his ear. Tamika came over and leaned down beside me. "Why your man keep acting like he the one in labor?" I laughed, but it came out thin. About 10 minutes later, he came back inside, but he wasn't any calmer. If anything, he looked worse. His smile was strained. He kissed the top of my head, but his lips were cold. "You sure you okay?" I asked again. "Yeah, babe. Just handling something." "Handling what?" I didn't ask. I wish I had, because maybe if I had pressed him right then, maybe if I had made him answer one hard question in front of everybody, what happened next would have happened differently. Or maybe not. Maybe some truths are so rotten they're going to break through, no matter how hard you try to keep them buried. I had just opened a gift bag full of little pink sleepers when the room went quiet. You know how a room sounds when laughter cuts off all at once? It's like the air gets sucked out. I looked up, and everybody near the entrance was staring toward the door. A woman had just walked in. She wasn't loud. She wasn't stumbling. She wasn't dressed like somebody looking for a fight. She was calm. Too calm. That's what made it worse. She wore a fitted cream dress, flat sandals, and she had this medium-sized brown folder tucked under her arm. Her hair was laid, makeup soft, face serious. She looked around the room until her eyes landed on Rashad, and I swear to you, my husband turned white. Not pale, white. Like every drop of blood in his body had run for cover. For a second, nobody said anything. Then my mother stepped forward with that polite church lady smile and asked, "Can I help you?" The woman's eyes moved from my mother to me, then to my stomach, then back to Rashad, and in the calmest voice I have ever heard in my life, she said, "I'm not here to cause a scene, but I think she deserves to know that I'm married to her husband too." I don't remember breathing. I remember sounds, little gasps, somebody dropping a fork, my aunt saying, "What?" under her breath. I remember my ears ringing like the world had suddenly gone underwater, and I remember Rashad moving fast, too fast. He rushed toward her and hissed, "What are you doing here? Not who are you? Not you've got the wrong man. What are you doing here?" That one sentence cracked something open inside me, because innocent men don't say that. The woman looked right at him and said, "I told you I was done being lied to." Then she looked at me, and her voice softened. "My name is Danielle," she said, "and I found out about you last week." I stared at her so hard, my eyes started to burn. I wanted her to look crazy. I needed her to look crazy. But she didn't. She looked tired. That's what shook me the most. She looked like somebody who had cried herself empty before she ever stepped into that room. Rashad turned to me. "Alyssa, don't listen to this. She's lying." Danielle let out a short laugh with no humor in it. "Lying?" she said. "Rashad, I have our marriage certificate in this folder." The room erupted. Everybody started talking at once. My mama yelled, "Rashad, what is she talking about?" His mother grabbed his arm. My cousin Tamika muttered, "Oh my God," about 6 times in a row. Somebody in the back actually pulled out a chair and sat down like they knew this was about to become a full show. I sat frozen. Because when your life shatters in public, there's a part of you that leaves your body and watches from the ceiling. Rashad kept talking, but I could barely hear him. "She's obsessed. She's confused. We dated a long time ago. She's trying to ruin this day." Danielle didn't raise her voice. She just opened the folder. That sound, the little flap opening, might as well have been thunder. She pulled out papers, and walked straight toward me. Rashad stepped in front of her. "Don't you come near my wife. Your wife, singular." That word nearly made me scream. Danielle stopped, looked him dead in his face, and said, "Which one?" The room went dead silent again. She stepped around him and held the papers out to me. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely take them. At the top of the first page were her name, and Rashad's full name, and a marriage date. A date that made no sense, because according to that paper, he had married Danielle 6 months before he married me. I blinked at it once, twice. My mind refused it, like if I stared hard enough, maybe the ink would rearrange itself into something survivable. "It's fake," Rashad said quickly. "Anybody can fake paperwork." Danielle reached back into the folder and pulled out photographs. Not one, not two, a stack. Rashad and Danielle, smiling in front of a courthouse. Rashad wearing a grey suit I had seen hanging in our closet. Rashad at what looked like a family barbecue, arm around her waist. Rashad in front of a Christmas tree, wearing the exact navy sweater I bought him our first December together. Each picture felt like a slap, because I recognized him completely. There was no confusion, no look-alike, no old pictures from before me. These were during me, during us, during everything I thought was mine. I heard somebody crying, and realized a second later, it was me. Not loud, just tears falling so hard, I couldn't stop them. I looked up at Rashad, and all I could get out was, "How?" That one word. How do you marry 2 women? How do you split yourself down the middle, and come home every night, acting normal? How do you kiss one wife goodbye and call another one baby on the phone? How do you watch me carry your child knowing another woman thinks she has your whole life? He stepped toward me, hands out like he wanted to touch me. "Alyssa, listen to me. I can explain." "Don't," I said. My voice sounded strange, empty. "Don't touch me." Danielle stood there with tears in her own eyes now, but she was holding herself together better than I was. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't know about you. I swear to God I didn't know, and the worst part, I believed her, because no mistress walks into a baby shower with legal documents and grief in her face, unless she's been lied to too." I looked at her stomach then. No baby bump, but there was pain there. Fresh pain. And before I could ask, she answered the question I hadn't spoken. "I was pregnant too," she said. The room practically tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair because I thought I might fall out of it. Danielle's eyes dropped for a second, then lifted back to mine. "I lost the baby 2 months ago," she said. "And he was supposed to be with me at the appointment that day. That's when I found messages from you, on an old tablet he left logged in." My whole body went cold. Rashad made a frustrated sound, like he was the one being inconvenienced. "Alyssa, she is twisting things." Danielle swung toward him so fast I almost stepped back, and I wasn't even standing. "Twisting things?" she snapped. "Tell her where you were every time you said you had a work trip. Tell her why you needed 2 different phone plans. Tell her why your client meetings were weekends. Tell her why your mother has been covering for you." Now that lit a whole new fire in the room. Everybody's head turned toward Sheila. Rashad's mother looked like somebody had pulled the floor out from under her. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Rashad," she whispered. And right then, I knew. Maybe she didn't know everything, but she knew something. That hurt nearly as much as what he'd done. Because there is a special kind of betrayal in realizing people smiled in your face while standing too close to your humiliation. "Did you know?" I asked her. Sheila started crying immediately. "Baby, not like this. I didn't know all of it. I swear I didn't. All of it. Not none of it. All of it." I let out this laugh that sounded so broken I barely recognized it. My mother came and stood beside me then. That was the first thing that made me feel anchored. She put one hand on my shoulder and one hand on my stomach, like she was trying to hold both me and my baby in place. "What exactly did you know?" my mother asked Sheila, and her voice had gone dangerously quiet. Sheila cried harder. I knew there was another woman. I thought he had ended it. He told me it was over before he married Alyssa. The room exploded all over again. Rashad shouted, "Ma!" But it was too late. Danielle laughed that same bitter laugh. Ended it? He was living with me part-time until last week. Part-time. That word sat on my chest like a weight. Part-time husband. Part-time liar. Part-time father. Full-time fraud. I stood up too fast and the room swayed. Everybody rushed toward me, telling me to sit down, breathe, calm down, think about the baby. But I was done being calm. I looked right at Rashad. No tears now, just something hot and clear and final. How long? I asked. He stared at me, like he was trying to figure out which lie would save him. That alone was answer enough. How long? I said again. He swallowed. Danielle and we had history before you. It got complicated. I almost laughed in his face. Complicated? I repeated. Is that what they're calling bigamy now? His jaw tightened. He hated when I got sharp. He especially hated it when I got sharp in public. But today he had earned every blade. I was trying to fix it, he said. Fix it. A whole second wife and a dead baby, and he was trying to fix it. Danielle stepped closer. Tell her the rest. He shot her a look so dark it made my skin crawl. And that's when I saw the man beneath the picture. Not charming Rashad, not loving Rashad, not nursery painting, belly kissing Rashad. This was a man who got angry when his lies were dragged into the light. Danielle turned to me. There is more, she said. Of course there was. There always is. She reached into the folder again and pulled out bank statements. I only found out because I was trying to figure out why our savings account was lower than it should have been, she said. At first I thought there had been fraud. Then I realized the fraud was him. She handed me copies, transfers, withdrawals, payments. I didn't understand all of it at first, but the numbers were enough to make me dizzy. Rashad had been moving money between accounts for months, maybe years. Danielle looked sick saying it. He told me he was investing in a business, she said. He told me it was for our future. Then I found payments connected to your address, your utilities, furniture, medical bills. It hit me all at once. Some of the money Rashad used in our marriage wasn't his. It wasn't ours. He had been stealing from one household to play hero in another. I looked at him, and something inside me truly died. Because cheating is one thing. Lies are one thing. But when you realize the person you trusted didn't just betray your heart, they built your whole life using pieces stolen from somebody else's, it turns your memories ugly. That crib in the nursery? Maybe Danielle paid for part of it and didn't even know. That vacation he surprised me with last summer. Maybe it came out of the savings she thought was building her future. Suddenly, every gift felt contaminated. Every sweet moment had fingerprints on it. Danielle wasn't the woman who came to ruin my baby shower. Rashad was. He had set that bomb, long before either of us knew where it was buried. I asked him one more question, and I asked it slowly. So who are you really? Because at that point, I wasn't sure I knew anything true about him at all. His name, yes. His face, yes. But the man? No. He looked around the room, like he was waiting for somebody to save him. Nobody moved. Not his mother, not his cousins, not my family, not even the friends who used to call him a stand-up guy. When a lie gets too big, it eventually becomes too heavy for anybody else to carry. That's when Rashad did what weak men always do, when they can't control the truth anymore. He got angry. He pointed at Danielle. You had no right to come here. She folded her arms. And you had every right to marry 2 women? He pointed at me next, and I will never forget it. Never. As if somehow I had become part of the problem for sitting in the wreckage he caused. I was going to tell you, he snapped. When? I shouted back. After I gave birth. After she buried another baby. After you drained both our accounts. When, Rashad? He had no answer, just rage. That told me more than any confession ever could. That was it. That was the moment, the exact moment. Something inside me shut off completely. No more confusion, no more hope, no more trying to understand, just clarity. I nodded once. Slowly. Then I looked down at my stomach. My baby shifted, like she felt everything happening around her, and I placed my hand there gently, grounding myself, choosing her. When I looked back up, Rashad was already watching me, waiting, maybe expecting tears, maybe expecting me to break, maybe expecting me to fight for him, but I didn't do any of that. Instead, I said the simplest thing in the world. You need to leave. He blinked. Alyssa, leave. My voice didn't shake this time. It didn't crack. It didn't beg. It ended. The room held its breath. Rashad looked around, like he was waiting for somebody to step in, to defend him, to calm me down, to fix it. My mother stepped in front of me then. You heard my daughter. You need to leave. He looked stunned. Excuse me? I said leave. She repeated. Before somebody helps you leave. My uncles, who had been standing silently in the back, trying not to make this worse in front of all the women and church folk, started moving forward just enough for Rashad to understand she wasn't bluffing. He looked at me one last time, and maybe he thought I was still the same woman who could be talked around, soothed or guilted into silence. Maybe he thought the baby inside me would make me weak. Maybe he thought public humiliation would make me protect him to protect myself. But all I felt was clear. Clearer than I had ever felt in my life. And don't ever come back to my house, I told him. His eyes narrowed. Your house? I held his stare. Yes, I said. Mine. Since apparently half the money came from your other wife, he flinched. Good, for once. Let him feel it. He looked at Danielle with hatred, at his mother with blame, at my family with resentment. Then, he left. Just like that. Walked out of the baby shower he helped destroy, leaving behind balloons, wrapped gifts, and 2 women whose lives he had split open. The room stayed still for a long moment after he was gone. Then everything came crashing down. People started talking all at once. My aunties rushed to clean up as if tidying the room could tidy what had happened. My mother kept asking if I needed water. Tamika snatched my phone and started blocking Rashad on everything before I even thought to tell her to. Somebody escorted Sheila outside because she was nearly hyperventilating. And in the middle of all that noise, Danielle and I just looked at each other. 2 strangers, 2 wives, 2 women standing in the ashes of the same lie. I should have hated her. That would have been easier, cleaner, more familiar, but I didn't. Because the minute I really looked at her, I saw the same thing that must have been written all over my own face. Devastation. I asked everybody to give us a minute. A few people hesitated, but eventually the room cleared enough that it was just us near the gift table. Danielle sat down across from me. For a second, neither one of us spoke. Then I asked, "How did you meet him?" And she told me. 5 years earlier, through a mutual friend, serious fast, marriage a year later, he traveled for work, kept his phone locked, said his long absences were because he was under pressure professionally, always had a story ready, always had a reason, always knew exactly what to say. As she talked, I kept hearing my own marriage in hers. Just a remix. Different details. Same script. He used to tell me he wanted children more than anything, she said quietly. After I lost the baby, he cried and acted devastated. He held me in that hospital bed and told me we'd try again. I closed my eyes, because he had probably come home from holding her in one place and held me in another. 2 performances. You said you found my messages, I said. She nodded. A dentist confirmation popped up on his old tablet. It had your name. I searched it, then I found emails, photos backed up. A baby registry, my baby registry, the one he had helped me choose colors for. She swallowed hard. I threw up when I saw it. I believed that too. We sat there in silence a minute longer. Then she said something I didn't expect. I almost didn't come. I looked at her. I almost just disappeared, she said. I almost let you find out on your own because I was humiliated. But then I thought about you standing here, smiling, carrying a baby, and not knowing the man beside you was a lie. I couldn't do that to you. I started crying again, but not the same way as before. This time, it was quieter, deeper, because there was something almost unbearable about being saved by the very woman I had every reason to see as an enemy. I reached for a napkin and laughed weakly through tears. This is the worst baby shower in history. To my surprise, Danielle laughed too. Not because it was funny, because sometimes the only thing left to do when your life gets absurd is laugh before you lose your mind. By that evening, the story had already spread through both families. Phones were ringing, texts were flying. People who hadn't checked on me in months suddenly had opinions. Men I barely knew wanted to talk about both sides. Women who had tolerated Rashad because he was handsome and polite were now swearing they never trusted him. Funny how clear everybody's vision gets after the truth is public. Rashad called 32 times that night. I didn't answer once. He left voicemails ranging from apologetic to angry to manipulative. Alyssa, please let me explain. Alyssa, this is not what it looks like. Alyssa, you're being influenced right now. Alyssa, answer your phone. We're married. That last one almost made me throw my phone across the room. We're married. Yes, and apparently, so was he. To somebody else. The next morning, Danielle called me. I stared at her name for a while before answering. She didn't waste time. There's something else you need to know, she said. Because of course there was. She had gone back to the house she shared with Rashad. Yes, house, because he had a whole separate place with her too, and found documents hidden in a file box in the garage. Tax notices, past due letters, legal paperwork. Turns out Rashad wasn't just juggling women. He had debt, serious debt, credit cards, personal loans, possible fraud tied to business accounts he had no authority to open. He had been using both marriages as cover, while he scrambled to stay ahead of collapse. That explained the money, the missing savings, the weird transfers, the business opportunities, the pressure I could never quite name hanging over him. He wasn't maintaining two lives because he was some mastermind. He was maintaining two lies because one truth would have exposed all of them. Over the next few weeks, Danielle and I did the strangest thing imaginable. We teamed up. Not because we became best friends overnight. Not because pain magically bonded us into sisters. But because survival is practical. We compared timelines. We shared documents. We figured out what bills had been paid from where, what accounts our names were tied to, what lies he had told each of us about the other parts of his life. The more we uncovered, the uglier it got. There were no other wives that we found. Thank God. But there had been other women. Some before us, maybe one during. Nothing as deep as what he did to us. But enough to make it clear that deceit was not a chapter in Rashad's character. It was the whole book. By the time my daughter was born, Rashad had gone from begging to bargaining to blaming. When he realized he couldn't charm his way back in, he tried to make himself the victim. He told people Danielle ambushed him. He told people pregnancy had made me emotional. He told one cousin I had pushed him away. He told his mother he'd made mistakes, but didn't deserve to lose everything. Lose everything. As if everything he lost hadn't first been stolen from somebody else. He was not in the delivery room when I gave birth. My mother was, and when they laid my daughter on my chest, pink and screaming and perfect, I looked at her tiny face and made myself a promise. She would not see me beg a broken man to become whole. Some people asked if I ever hated Danielle. No, not after the smoke cleared. What I felt for her was something closer to sorrow, because she had buried a baby while married to a stranger, and I had carried one while sleeping beside the same kind of stranger. We weren't rivals, we were witnesses. Witnesses to what happens when one selfish person decides everybody else's life is collateral damage. Rashad did try, here and there, to come back around. Little messages, gifts returned unopened, A long email full of the words sorry, and absolutely no real accountability. The kind of apology written by a man who hates consequences more than he hates what he did. I never answered it. Because by then, I had finally learned something I wish more women were taught earlier. Closure does not always come from a confession. Sometimes, closure is the pattern. Sometimes closure is the paperwork. Sometimes closure is the look on a man's face when the lie he built his life on finally collapses in public. That was enough for me. The last time I saw Danielle was almost a year later. We met for coffee, not because we needed to exchange evidence anymore, but because enough time had passed for us to sit across from each other without bleeding. She looked lighter. Still sad in some places, but lighter. We talked about therapy, rebuilding credit, trust issues, all the boring, ugly work nobody shows after dramatic endings. Before we left, she looked at my daughter's picture on my phone and smiled. "She's beautiful," she said. "Thank you." Then there was this small silence. And I said the truest thing I had said about all of it. "You know, when you walked into that room, I thought you were there to destroy my life." She looked down into her cup. "I know, but you didn't," I said. "You exposed the lie I was living in." She looked up at me then, and I could see tears pressing at her eyes. Mine too, because that was the truth. That day was supposed to be about gifts and games, and tiny dresses, and celebrating the daughter I was about to bring into the world. Instead, it became the day the mask fell off. The day one wife met another. The day grief walked in, carrying a folder. The day I found out that the man I loved had built our marriage like a stage set, pretty from the front, hollow behind the walls. And as horrible as that day was, I thank God for it now. Because some women waste years begging a lie to love them better. I was forced to see mine all at once. Painful. Yes. Humiliating? Absolutely. But necessary. Because I'd rather be shattered by the truth than comforted by a lie. So when people ask me what it felt like when my husband's other wife showed up at my baby shower, I tell them this. It felt like dying in public. And then, slowly, painfully, it felt like waking up.